Do you make the hives for the bees?
These are all made out of wood, of course. I'm sure they're pine. The only thing they asked us to do is paint the exterior to protect the wood itself. In the environment, bees can be down in the ground, they can be in trees. Sometimes people have holes in their houses and the bees get in there and they actually build the comb and they make honey inside people's walls. But in here, this is just the first box, my inner cover. And here I've got a container of sugar water, and that's what we use in the spring to feed the bees until they can get enough honey source and nectar. And this is made up of 1-to-1 sugar to water. And you can see there's some bees down that sugar bucket. But yeah, they go in and out of them holes.
What kind of bees do you have in the hive?
There's nurse bees that take care of the young, and they become a nurse bee right off the bat when they get hatched. And they also help assist the queen. There's bees that actually all they do is take her poop out, because nothing poops in these hives, not any of these bees. They take it outside when they have to go. And they take care of the queen with that too. And then there's guard bees that guard the entrances in case something tries to get into the hive. And then there's the rest of them are all, and they're all girls basically. And they go out and they foliage the environment trying to find nectar and honey.
Does beekeepers ever get stung by bees?
Rarely. My first year being a novice beekeeper, I would wear short sleeve shirts, shorts, this hood. And all summer long I worked with them, never had a problem. Then it came fall, it was time to harvest the honey. When I was taking the boxes off, I didn't have gloves on. I got stung 3 times in the hands. And it hurt like the dickens, and my hand did swell up. So after that I learned, make sure you kind of cover up when you're around these guys. I got stung once this spring already, and I figured, well, today I'm gonna be safe. I'm just gonna wear my gloves, protect myself.
What happens if he gets stung?
For me, I get a little bit swollen. It's not anything that's life-threatening to me at all, but my wrist swelled up and it hurt for probably 3-4 days. Just the venom that comes out of the back of the bee. And I know other people that if they get stung by a bee, they have to have an EpiPen because it can affect their heart and their lungs. They can break out completely in hives. Some people have to be very careful around bees.
Do bees, will they die when they sting somebody?
Yes, a bee will sting and it will die. I happened to get stung last week, right up here in the arm. I didn't have a glove on. I saw the bee land in my hand and he was walking around. A lot of times they do that. But I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden he turned and he stuck his stinger down in my hand. And then I watched him walk away and the stinger pulled out of his back end. So he can't live now, his stinger's out. I could see the stinger in my arm, I just took it, I picked it off.
How do you keep yourself safe from the bees? How do you keep the bees occupied while you pull out the honey?
I've been drying out. Those are my chips, I gotta get my lighter, it's right inside. With bees, we have to smoke them. When you smoke the bees, they go back down into the hive, so they feel like they're safe when they're back down in that box. So if they get excited, I smoke them. It's like a deal that kind of masks over their pheromones. So when they're upset, say you get stung, they release a pheromone and it attracts the other bees to that. So by putting out smoke, it kind of minimizes that. So here's what I do. I put a piece of burlap down in here, and then I put a piece of the wood in there. And then I light the burlap. I want to get those sticks really going. That's where I really get the smoke. So this is the smoke, but they'll glue these things together. And you can see we got a few bees up in here. See that smoke? Go right back down in.
So the smoke makes them calm.
Yeah.
Is your hat and your suit so the bees won't sting you?
The reason we wear white suits is that if you wear a dark color, the bees think you're a bear. And bears notoriously love honey. They'll do anything to get honey. And that means they tear apart hives to get it. So if you wear a dark color, they may mistake you as a bear, and you're going to have some issues with these guys. We cover our heads too, so that the bees can't fly up into our eyes, into our noses, into our mouths, because they would do that if you didn't have yourself covered. They're curious. To the hive. Oh, I see there's a hornet there. That's not a good one. What's he doing here? They're enemies to one another, so the bees don't like the hornets, and they'll fight. And the hornets will still try to kill the bees too. And also hornets will try and steal the honey, so I don't want them around here.
Do wasps try to get in where the bees keep the honey? Why are bees and wasps different apart? I want you to answer this question, please.
Difference between bees and wasps. Wasps build a paper nest in an environment. You probably see them in trees. They're big balls, and they don't collect honey. And to me, they're more of a nuisance than anything, because they see you walk out, they jump on you and they sting you. That's what wasps seem to do. And you don't really know what their benefit is to society. Maybe they're bird food. But with bees and wasps don't get along at all. That's why we have bees in there that protect the hive.
Why are bees so important to flowers?
Why bees are good for flowers? Well, particularly the fruit trees, almond trees, apple trees, pear trees. They flower every spring, and the only reason they get fruit is because the bee goes in there to collect the pollen and nectar, and they go from flower to flower, and they pollinize. They actually stimulate the growth for apples and pears and all the fruit. And if we didn't have bees, we wouldn't have apples. So look at your grocery store. Of all the things that wouldn't be in there if we didn't have bees. So bees are vitally important to us in our food chain. Plus they give us honey.
Why do bees make honey, and how do they make honey? How do bees turn pollen into honey?
Well, they go out to the woods or wherever they find a nectar, they bring it back. They get in the hive, they spit it up. The next bee takes it in. He takes it, spits it up to the next bee. And they keep spitting it amongst themselves. They get it into a comb, they put it in the comb. And once they fill that comb and they know the right moisture content of that honey, they'll put a wax cap over the top of it, and it's sealed in. And that honey is good forever. They find it in pharaoh tombs way back that's thousands of years old, and that honey is still good honey. It's been sealed properly by the bees. That's all capped honey. If I were to take that out, it's all honey in there. Well, see, that's just a regular foundation. They haven't built this out yet. But you can see all the dots on there that they'll fill that up. And the bees, they can use this for eating while they're in there. There's some more comb. And they'll build all that out, and they can store their honey in there, and they can also use that for brooding purposes. They can winter over in a hive and not eat up all the honey. There's about 100 pounds of honey in there for them to survive on through the winter. And they're eating the honey within that hive they're feeding each other with. So that's how they make it through the winter. It's all their nectar source, where they were collecting pollen from, and the nectar from the different bushes and so forth. It just so happened last year it was a very clear honey source, and the year before this probably had a little more tree pollen in it that made it this color. But you do not want to microwave honey. You'll kill all the good stuff in it.
Why do they make the buzzing noise?
And they make that sound when their wings are flapping. That's the only time I hear them buzzing. They also, when they're inside the box, they're moving their wings to fan air. So if the hive gets really warm in the summer, there'll be bees lined up down in the front entrance, flapping their wings, creating an airflow through the hive. That's kind of how they kind of cool themselves. And same in the winter, to move heat around, they'll be flapping their wings. That's where you're hearing that sound.
I'm curious about how long the queen bee lives.
The queen will last 2 years. They lay 1,000 eggs a day from about end of April and through about August. And then after that, they pretty much stop laying eggs.
And how do baby bees grow?
Well, a bee will live about 40 days. They start out, the queen lays an egg in a cell, and from the time that that egg is laid until it pops from the cell is 21 days, and then another 40 days after that. And typically they die because they work to death. They will fly up to 5 miles away to find a pollen source. And when that bee finds a pollen source, it'll fly back, knows how to get back 5 miles away to the hive, and it will do a dance when it gets inside. And the turning and the dance that the bee imitates is the direction and distance that bee has to fly to find it. And that's how they send other bees to that same source. So it's amazing, an insect that only lives 40 days has that knowledge that's already innate into that particular animal cell.
How do they lay another queen bee?
They do that fairly often, and if you can find a queen cell in here, I can show you. And they do that as a backup plan. In case something were to happen or the queen were to die, that queen cell would hatch, that would fly out, it would get mated by a drone and come back in as a mated queen and continue the process. So they always have to have a backup plan. This is called a pollen patty, and it's pollen that the bees use to stimulate the queen to get her starting to lay eggs. And this is before there's any other pollen in the environment yet. So that's what we use to get them going. Usually it's in April when we put this on.
Why is there not a king bee?
Why is there not a king bee? It's a good question. There's male bees, they're called drones. And the drones have one purpose, that is to mate with a virgin queen. And there'll be maybe 400 drones in each of these boxes. But fall time, they get kicked out. They die because all they do is lay around, watch TV, and eat honey. And the other bees, they don't care for that. So there's never a king. There's no males in our environment that actually produce offspring. It's the female that produces offspring. And every day we'll get 1,000 new bees.